Hey, Infinite Magicraid, YouTube, Gandalf here. Recently been taking a look at our guild's mentorship program, and I do see one question that does get asked a lot is people are working on picking out their first mythic. It is a very big decision to make because it takes a while to save up those mythic shards. At the beginning of the game, there are different, I guess, the beginner handbook and some other ways of quickly getting some mythic shard. But other than that, if you're free to play and you're starting out, usually you won't be able to save up 100 mythic shards. Um, Maybe you will save up 100 every month or so. So it is a pretty lengthy amount of time to get to a mythic. So you do want to make those choices wisely. You do get a free mythic conversion stone. Those are incredibly rare. We're about to get another one with the upcoming anniversary event, but you do want to make a good choice of mythics to best help with your game progression. um, Recently, I did a collab with Carzek, and we did a tier list. So from there, that's a good way of saying, which mythics are probably the most impactful for you in the game. So that would be Nordak, Nita, Lucifer, Allcaster, Lucia, and Ben Austin. But you probably want to pick one that's most suitable for your account. So that's why we get a lot of these who to pick for the first mythic. One thing I love about the game is because mythics are guaranteed. If you're missing a particular role in your team, these mythics are great ways of filling out the gap. So I think, as you think about which mythics to get, this is probably the best way of deciding which mythic you need. So from your luck and your draws, you want to see, do you have these roles filled out? Do you have a good solid choice of shielders? Well, everybody got a Catherine, but you might or might not be able to get a Santa. Well, you have the option of getting a Santa now, so one just for 5,000 gems that's coming up. So if you decide to get a Santa and you have a nice Catherine and you have, you gotten some other shielders, whether it be, Marvel, you get it from to get the healing and the additional buff removal from there. Or you get some other healer, something like a Theth. You got a good choice of these heroes, then you probably wouldn't need a Nordak. But if you don't have a good selection of shielders and Catherine is your only one that you got, and you want to get some other heroes instead of, you want to get, you know, maybe get Little Jack instead of Santa, you might choose to get Nordak. So look at the available shielders. Are you happy with your shielding capabilities? And these shielders will be useful across all of your dungeons. So really, you don't need more than two or even more than two of them, I would say. So you already got a Catherine. So if you got a Santa, you really don't need to pick Nordak as your first mythic. If you got a Seth, you really don't need to pick Nordak. You got enough shielding capability there. Then you look at your roster and you say, do you have a damage attack down? And attack down is the most impactful. So if you haven't checked out my damage formula analysis, how the damage formula or the damage calculation is done in this game, you go check out that video and you'll learn that attack down is the most effective way of reducing the damage the boss does. You can add more shields, but you're gonna get way more out of it by just reducing attack down on the boss by 40%. So the best choices are Hal, Mamook, and French. So if you have one of them, you're set. If not, you could consider trying to get to that E1 Jack because you easily stack up a 40% attack down reduction from there. And this does stack further with the attack down debuff. So together, 80% is like the boss is going to be hitting you less than 10%, more like about 7% of the original damage or so, which is huge for pushing higher level dungeons, which is a mandatory requirement, I will actually say, to get a Jack, little Jack to make that work. So, if you don't have, so your choice here really is, if you have good round, all round damage reduction, really don't pick Nordak. So then you ask yourself, do I have solid DPS? Well, Nita is the best AoE DPS in game from a daughter perspective. Great for PvE, great for PvP. Though, do you have a nice solid roster already? So now, if you start an account, everyone's going to be able to get a Hazanja if you finish the campaign within 5 or 7 days. So if you got a Hazanja that's built up, maybe you don't really need that Nita, right? Or if you got lucky and you also got a Nidroid, or you got, an a Heejin, or some other solid AoE DPS that can really help you clear the wave and do a lot of damage on the boss, Nita is not that high of a priority for you then. So this is where you start looking at, what other mythics you can get first. So for example, you got a Catherine E3 already, and you progress through towers really quickly. You got a Hazanja E3. You're set for damage for that. You should be able to clear most of stage pre-30 content. That's when you start looking at, okay, well, how does my guild boss look? And really, I highly recommend you progress as far as you can realistically on your guild boss without suffering progressing other parts of the game. So getting Ben Austin and being able to do joint attack on the boss every single turn at E3 is a very worthy investment. Or even at E0, right? Pairing it up with your Hazanja is going to be like having two Hazanjas on your team, and you know, dotting up the entire enemy waves, clearing it up, clearing up on the boss. It's huge to get a Ben Austin early on in the game. So if you think about it from that perspective, really, if you got a solid AoE and you got solid shielders, then maybe your first pick should be Ben Austin. I highly recommend these are your first three choices. And maybe I'll consider Allcaster as the fourth pick because Allcaster E1 E0 cheese, getting that buff onto your Hez is a great way of clearing dungeons. Sacrificing a slot on your team wouldn't help you get those 3 stars when you need them, but man, all caster cheese with Hazanja does help you push a couple of extra levels and make you farm very quickly. So that's another option for just investment of 100 shards. But again, I think in terms of first mythic recommendation, I'll leave it at there. So again, Nordak, if you don't have solid shielders, Nita, if you don't feel like you got a good roster of DPS, and if you feel like you got that already in your legendary heroes, then really you should be looking at Ben Austin and maybe Allcaster as a backup option. So hopefully we see less of those questions in chat, and you're able to pick the mythic that's most important for your account. And if you pick the wrong one, well, you do have a mythic conversion shard that's coming up, so you can really pick a mythic hero that will be a lot more impactful for your game. Once you hit past stage 30, this is when you start looking at mythics that will really help you with particular portions of the game. For example, if you need a bleeder and you don't have a Nidroid, so Lucia will be a great pick, right? You need a solid single target damage DPS for boss related content, whether it be Wuthering Coast or the guild boss. Lucifer is a great pick for that. So, you know, these become heroes that shine really well in specific parts of the game where you might want to get one of these guys. Beyond that, in PvE scenarios, you don't really have many other mythics that are helpful. Luna is really kind of limited now to faction and tower. She can still do decent amount of work. It's just that I think she's got out power crap by a lot of other heroes that can just do a little bit more. So hopefully this helps you out. And if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for other content you'd like me to cover, please leave a comment below. And again, I'll really appreciate your support. Your views are what pays for and help me get content out there and help me be able to fund and test different things on the various things on the account. So thanks again for your support. Gandalf out.